Hey everybody, Dr. Baker here. This one is one you're going to want to share, and I don't ask you to share my videos very often, but I'm asking you to share this one. This one's a big deal. And even if you think that children should have every single under the sun, this one's going to piss you off, and this one's going to you're going to leave you're like, what? Really? That they do that? Human papillomavirus, HPV. There's 200 different types or strains of the virus. 200. Now understand, if you're watching this video, you most likely have HPV or you've had HPV, because 80% of sexually active adults either have or have had HPV in their lifetime. Only 75% of those 200 strains have 75% of those 200 strains have never been linked to cancer whatsoever. And if you were to get HPV, 90% of the time, the HPV virus clears the body within 2 years with no treatment or anything like that. So the question becomes, well then, why would they create a vaccine for something that virtually everybody has and it doesn't really cause any problems? And when I say that, what they did was they created a vaccine for HPV-related cancers. They want to prevent cancer related to HPV. Well, did you know that all HPV cancers only make up 2.74%, less than 3% of all cancers that are out there? Did you know that cervical cancer, which is the big scare, the big thing, oh, we've got to prevent cervical cancer. Cervical cancer represents less than 1% of all cancers in humans, based upon United States statistics. So why would we create a vaccine for that? We'll get there. Now here's the next question. Who gets cervical cancer? Who gets it? And according to the American Cancer Society, the majority of women who get cervical cancer are between the ages of 35 and 44. And actually 15% of women that get cervical cancer are over the age of 65 and say they're not even sexually active. Interesting. But yet the CDC comes along and they recommend that young boys and girls at the age of 11 to 12 receive a vaccination for HPV. And they can get them as early as 9. Don't worry. In case you're worried your 9-year-old's going to start having unprotected sex, you can swing her in there or him and get that vaccination at the age of 9. Here's the problem. Other than they're going to suggest 2 doses, right? Each one has 500 micrograms of aluminum in it. And if you wait till the child's older and they're 15, then they're going to say you need to get 3. And if the child is immunocompromised, you need to get 3 doses of the vaccine. That makes a lot of sense. Let's put more. Anyway, so you take your little boy or little girl in and get them vaccinated for HPV at age 11 or 12. They have shown, and it's well-known fact, that this shot only protects you, like if you believe that, it only protects you for 6 years. That means that if your child gets vaccinated at the age of 11, when they're 17, they no longer have protection from this HPV virus. Well, when do most people start to become sexually active? Around 17 or 18 years old. So again, pretty pointless. What are we doing? Now, they also go on to say that it's very, very rare for anybody under the age of 20 to ever get cervical cancer. Why are we vaccinating kids for this? Gardasil came out in 2006. And when Gardasil first came out, by the way, just a little side note, Gardasil came out, and normally what they do is they compare a vaccination to a placebo, and that placebo is just a saline solution. In this particular trial, a safety trial, they compared Gardasil against an injection that still had the adjuvant and other chemicals that were in the same vaccine, which means basically you're comparing almost the vaccine versus the vaccine. How is that a safety study? And what that does is it makes it look like the vaccine, the real one, is not necessarily that dangerous or not creating that many problems. Well, that screams integrity, doesn't it? Well, people ask me, well, what about without the vaccine? What would we do? Great question. Here's what you do. Vaccine came out in 2006. So what we got to look at is cancer statistics in 2005. In 2005, in the United States, there was 10,370 cases of cervical cancer. That makes up 0.75% of all the cancers. 0.75%. Fast forward to 2015, the vaccine has been available for nine years and on the market and been given to little boys and girls. And now there's 12,900 cases of cervical cancer. And you might say, oh, well, there's more cancer because there's more people. There's more cancer because there's more cancer across the board. Okay, well, I did the math. And per capita, it's now That's 0.77% of all cancers instead of 0.75% of all cancers. That means that 9 years after this vaccine was released, there's still more cervical cancer than there was prior to that. That should piss you off. That's weird. Well, what kind of damages are we talking about? Because as of April 30th, 2018, there's been 58,992 adverse reactions reported because of this vaccine. And 430 of those are death. What kind of reactions are we talking about here? Of course, we do have the typical ones, right? But let's go on from there. Sudden collapse and unconsciousness within 24 hours of getting the vaccine. Seizures, muscle pain, disabling fatigue, Guillain-Barré, facial paralysis, brain inflammation, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, blood clots, premature ovarian failure. You wonder why our infertility rates are going through the roof. Optic neuritis, multiple sclerosis, and again, back to death. Catch this stat. This is kind of crazy. The HPV vaccine accounts for more than 60% of all reported adverse events. That means all the vaccines, all the jacked up kids, all the reactions, all the stuff, the HPV vaccine accounts for 60% or more of that. And of all females under the age of 30 that have been deemed disabled, they're on disability under the age of 30, 82% of the time it's because of this vaccine. 82% of the time. Why would you ever take your 9, 10, 11-year-old child in for this vaccination when ultimately, if they got HPV, they have a 90% chance of it clearing their body in the first place? 80% of adults have HPV, and only 75% of the 200 strains have never been linked to cancer anyways. And if they got the shot, it can only protect them for up to 6 years, which means by the time they're 17, they no longer have protection. When we talk about protection, why don't you just tell your kids to use one of these? Right? Because these actually do protect against things. These actually protect things like gonorrhea and syphilis and AIDS and pregnancy. Like, these actually work. Like, these, the tried and true method, might want to give this a shot. 0 side effects unless you're like allergic to latex. Well, that's an issue, but press on. But the reason why this is continuing to be an issue is because, why? Is it about health or is it about money? I think it's about money. And here's the thing. In the year 2015, Merck, the company that makes Gardasil 9, made $1.9 billion. That's what it'd be, $1.9 billion off of this one vaccination. It is the number 2 most profitable vaccine in the history of all vaccinations. $1.9 billion. That's why they're poisoning your kids for no reason. Now, if you understand this stuff and agree with me, if this is kind of weird to you and it's a big deal, would you share it, please? Because this needs to go big before, I don't know, it gets erased. Share it. And then there's a link above. Please click that link because then you can submit your email address so I can let you know about Project 180. Again, Project 180 is a thing we're doing where I'm bringing together the world's experts, and we're doing a series of short videos on all this kind of stuff so it's easy to digest. It's going to be in multiple languages. And you'll be able to have this same stuff, except in your computer, in your phone, that no censorship can ever take away from you. Click the link above and submit your email address. Do not send me your email because I do not have the ability or the opportunity or the time to copy and paste and put it into the system. Peace out. See you around.